Welcome, Hive. We are now on chapter 15 in The Hidden Figures. And I have been taking notes as I've been going along, reading the chapters, and just making sure that it was personal and learning the things that are important to me, as well as I would think would be important in case my teacher was asking me questions. So today, our title for our chapter is Young, Gifted, and Black. Now, the term black can be used both ways. So you could either say African American or you can also say black. While Mary Jackson was busy at work helping the NACA build supersonic airplanes, girls in high school were beginning to imagine different possibilities for themselves. Even though teaching was still the best option available, there were now more career choices. On October 5th, 1957, Christine Mann, a senior at the Allen School for Girls in Asheville, North Carolina, left her dorm room first thinking in the morning and walked to the library. Her job was to open the library and organize the newspapers and magazines before everyone else arrived. She took a moment to read the headlines as she set up the displays. Since the beginning of the school year, newspapers around the country had discussed the racial crisis in Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 black teenagers trying to integrate the all-white Central High School had turned that state's capital city into a military battleground. The Arkansas National Guard had been called out to prevent the black students from entering the school. In response, the federal government sent U.S. Army troops to escort the 9 students into the school. The crisis unfolded over days, and each morning Christine followed the news of the brave 9 children who were close to her in age. The showdown had dominated the headlines, and then the Soviet Union launched Sputnik. The Russians did it. They had created a satellite and launched it into orbit. And they did it before the United States. With tensions between the two countries already high because of the Cold War, this news put everyone further on edge. The United States needed to catch up. At the Langley Memorial Aeronautics Laboratory, there was great pressure to outperform the Russians at 360 miles above Earth, the altitude at which a satellite would fly around the planet. For the engineers, beating the Russians in space was a matter of personal and professional pride. And this is a picture of Sputnik. In the rest of the country, the fear was political. Red made satellite flashes across the U.S. Read the daily press in Newport News. Sphere tracked in 4 crossings over U.S. Read the New York Times. When Christine read the news, she felt she had fallen asleep in one world and awakened in another. October 4th, 1957, marked the end of the post-war era, a time when the world was rebuilding after the destruction of World War II. The morning of October 5th was the official dawn of the space age, the beginning of mankind's realizing a long-held dream to fly beyond the Earth's atmosphere and visit outer space. President Dwight D. Eisenhower tried to dismiss the Russian small ball in the air as an insignificant achievement, but the American people knew better. Sputnik, some experts declared, was nothing less than a technological declaration of the war. The Russians had won the first battle, but the space race was just getting started. The Sputnik Age. For the third time in a century, the United States found itself falling behind other countries, technologically during a period of international tension. On the cusp of World War I, the country didn't have enough airplanes, so the government created NACA. At the at the start of World War II, America's aircraft industry lagged behind Germany's, but during the war it surged its global dominance. Now the threat came from the Soviet Union. It wasn't just Sputnik. The Soviet Union had missiles, perhaps hundreds of them, with the power to reach U.S. cities and deliver nuclear bombs. A new term began to make the rounds in policy circles, the press, and private conversations: the missile gap. Black newspapers and their readers wasted no time in making the link between America's inadequacy in space and the dreadful conditions facing many black students in the South. While we were forming mobs to drive Arthur and Lucy, the black woman who integrated the University of Alabama in 1956, from the Alabama campus, the Russians were compelling all children to attend the best possible schools, argued the Chicago Defender. Until the United States changed its views on racial inequality and gave the same opportunities to all students, it would never be able to lead the world, the newspaper commented. An editorial in the Cleveland Call and Post echoed that idea. Who can say that it was not the institution of the Jim Crow school that has deprived this nation of the black scientists who might have solved the technological kinks delaying our satellite launching? For Christine Mann, reading the news brought mixed emotions. She felt fear, certainly. She had been just 3 years old when the first atomic bomb was dropped on Japan. She was part of the first generation in the history of the world to grow up with the possibility of the human race becoming extinct due to the nuclear war. The hostility between the United States and the Soviet Union made the country anxious about nuclear war. Black and yellow triangular fallout shelter signs popped up in public spaces, pointing the way to underground bomb shelters that were supposed to provide protection in the event of a nuclear attack. At school, students practiced duck and cover drills under their desks. And these were yellow and black, and they said fallout shelter. At the same time, Christine felt a sense of wonder, even a thrill to see a satellite circling Earth in the skies above. The world beyond Earth had always been a mysterious place. Space travel was becoming a natural next step for the restless inhabitants of Earth. Not just the subject of science fiction. What had been a dream was becoming reality. Christine and many other Americans worried that the Soviets had traveled into space before the Americans. We can't let them beat us, she thought, echoing the sentiments shared by those who worked at Langley Laboratory and citizens across America. A new day. 3 years before Christine Mann's parents had enrolled her at the Allen School, she had attended a public school in Monroe, North Carolina. She remembered the day in 1954 when the principal stepped into her 8th grade classroom and made an announcement. "I just came to let you all know that the Supreme Court just ruled on Brown versus education, and you will be going to school with white students in the future." The judges in the 5 legal cases known together as Brown versus Board of Education ruled that it was illegal to separate black and white students in public schools. In fact, the Board of Education court cases had a special connection for Dorothy Vaughn, a 16-year-old girl named Barbara Johns, a student at Moulton High School in Farmville, where Dorothy had taught, had grown tired of Moulton's overcrowded classrooms and tattered textbooks. when one of the school's broken down school buses crashed, killing 5 of her classmates. Barbara decided to take action. She led her fellow students in a strike, refusing to go to school until authorities improved the black schools conditions changed. Dorothy Vaughn's relatives were among the participants. Barbara then contacted lawyers who helped the students file a lawsuit against the county school board. It took years, but the lawsuit filed by Barbara Johns and her classmates eventually made its way to the Supreme Court, where it became part of Brown's decision. It was a victory for those who wanted to abolish segregation in America's public schools, but it would also mean a big change for both whites and blacks. Christine and her classmates were shocked when the principal made the announcement. She lived in the segregated part of a small southern town where all of her neighbors were black. The doctors, the teachers, the street sweepers, everyone. Most of the black men in her part of town earned a living working for the railroad. But black women worked in the cotton mill or as housekeepers. Segregation was all that Christine had ever known, so she worried about the Brown decision. She feared that she and her classmates would not be good enough or smart enough to succeed in a classroom of white children. How could she and other African American students coming from overcrowded classrooms with old textbooks compete with the kids who lived in the white section of town across the railroad tracks? But Christine's parents, just like Dorothy Vaughn's, Catherine Gobles, and Mary Jackson's, would do anything they could to keep their daughter to succeed. They believed in education, honesty, hard work, and character. Christine's father earned a good living as an insurance salesman. Hers was one of the few black families in town that owned a car, a Pontiac Hydra-Matic. And Christine's time at the Allen School was providing her with the best possible start in life. A charismatic 11th grade geometry teacher sparked Christine's interest in math, and she began to consider a future that would use her skills as a mathematician. Christine followed in the family tradition of attending a black college. She chose Hampton Institute. The summer before her senior year, Christine had accompanied a friend to the friend's sister's graduation from the school, and she had fallen in love with the elegant campus and balmy breezes from the ocean. She applied to Hampton and received a scholarship from the United Negro College Fund. Christine graduated from the Allen School in May of 1958. From the time Sputnik took flight in October of 1957 until she addressed her classmates as valedictorian in the spring, the Soviets had launched two more satellites, Sputnik 2 and Sputnik 3. In August of 1958, Christine left North Carolina and with her family drove north to the Hampton Institute campus. She didn't know it at the time, but her decision to move to Hampton would make her a part of the tradition of women working as mathematicians at Langley. The mountains of North Carolina flattened out as Christine's family drove toward the coast. She always loved the mountains, but when she saw the James River, so broad and measured in its flow as it joined Chesapeake Bay, the sight took her breath away. Crossing that river as she closed in on Hampton, Virginia, as she closed in on Hampton, Virginia, made Christine feel like anything was possible.